Alright guys, so we have the Vantage race. I'm going to try to get the fuselage assembled for the glider version, pure glider version. This is a F3B model, and we have that really compact nose, probably one of the tightest that I've seen. So yeah, I don't know exactly how it's going to go. I'm going to try to stick a 18650 pack in here. I was going to go with the 18500s, but they're the same diameter, so it wouldn't really help a ton. It would save me some room back here, but I'd still have to cut all this out because the cells are the same diameter. And I've picked up some of these new KST CM509MG servos, and they're pretty sweet. They're a little smaller than like the X12 508s. They're shorter. Just a little more compact in general, and a really nice feature is that the wires come out of the bottom. See there? So you don't have to try to wiggle the servo in and get past the wire sticking out of the side of the case. And I've already kind of held this up to the fuse, and it doesn't get anywhere near touching the bottom. I think so. So these should work out great, and I'll show you the specs on these. So we'll just go with the 8.4 volts, 6 kilograms of torque at 0.08 seconds, and at 6 volts it's 4.8 kilograms at 0.11 seconds. So this should be absolutely perfect for these V-tails on this model, and it weighs 15 grams, so pretty nice little servo. Actually, if they made this with the horizontal wing mounts, this thing might be an epic little servo for flaps and 5J models or ailerons and heavier models. So I hope we see these with wing mount tabs. But anyway, these are going to go in here, so I'm just going to kind of play with the layout and see what I can come up with. Okay, so here is what I've come up with for the servo placement. I am roughly 20 millimeters here from the back edge of this cutout to where this fuselage just starts curving up. So it's still on the last flat bit, 20 millimeters, and then I've measured 24 millimeters, which is a little bit longer than the servo by about 3/4 millimeter or so. And I've given myself a 9 millimeter distance here to account for both servo arms, and then another 24 millimeters there, and it's about 11 millimeters wide. Okay, well, I thought I was a genius because I found these awesome little servos, and I did make the cutouts in the fuse, and that's all well and good, but if we just get the servo in here kind of temporarily, basically gonna happen. Let's see, let me go this way. If I put the servo in, see the push rod is way too low, so we'd have to bend this push rod up like that to make it work, and that's not going to cut it. So I might have to come up with some kind of creative solution on this one. Alright, this fuselage install is proving to be quite tricky. I had to basically remove all of this deck that was here to try and get a battery in. 18650, too big. I'm going to try to get a 18500 pack in here, which is the same diameter but shorter. So I need more room for the receiver. You're gonna have to run a very small receiver with this guy. You know, I'm trying to fit this JR 6-channel, which is fairly small. I could potentially take the case off that, or I'm even thinking about this Radio Master Express LRS ER8G receiver. But both these are super tight fit. Okay, moving on to the servos. Even with these KST CM509 servos, they were sitting too high. So I had to drop them below the level of the deck, right, to try to line up with the pushrod ends. And in order to do that, I came up with a 3D printed tray here. I have one here. So I cut a slot in, and the tray sinks into that slot, and the servos are mounted from the bottom. You can see the screw heads to the tray, and then 4 screws hold the tray into the fuselage, and that's basically as low as I can get the servos. The bottoms of the servos are touching the bottom of the fuse, but we are able to line up the push rods a little better. Alright, let me show you where we're at here with the build. So basically have the servos installed with that tray I printed up, routed all the wires through. The wing harness wires go on the sides of the servos. There's no room underneath the servos to get the wires through. And the servo wires kind of go here in the center, then come out on the side as well. And I've prepped my arms and the clevises and the couplers. Now I think this is the first time building this model. If I had to do it again, I'd definitely move the servos way further back that way. If I move this arm to its fullest extent like that, you can still see I have a little bit of give there. I could have probably gone back a little further, although the carbon push rod's flexing quite a bit. So now I think if you're confident with your building skills, what you might want to do is just ditch the coupler, the threaded coupler, and glue the clevis straight to the push rod here. Or you could try a smaller coupler, chopping it down a little bit. Anyway, you want to get these servos back. I think if I had another 10 millimeters or so distance towards the back of the model, it made the layout much easier. Clevises are prepped. They're ground on the bottom and the top. I did the top because they need to clear the servo screw here that goes right there. So a little bit of relief work there. Let me zoom in a little bit. Too much. Okay, you can see I've cut a slot here. This is to help promote adhesion, so some of the glue will ooze out. I've ground down the back of the coupler, and I also kind of put a bit in my Dremel and went on the inside too to scratch it up. So there's the couplers and clevises. Now for the arms, I ran the red arms that come with the like X10s and these servos. And there's a, these are the single-sided arms, and there's a little dimple where I've mounted the clevises. The hole's not drilled all the way through, so the actual drilled hole would be out here, but there's a dimple here, and I just drilled that out for the clevis, which resulted in a much shorter arm. And the let me try to get the distance here of the arm. Give you an idea. This is probably going to be the longest arm you can get. It's 6 millimeters, basically, from the output shaft to the pin on the clevis. So that's going to be probably the longest you're going to get. Should have plenty of travel. And if you notice, I actually had to grind a little bit of the clevis here to get clearance from the nose cone here too. So very, very tight install here. Waiting on a battery, haven't got that yet. And all we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the tail, or actually we don't need to go back to the tail, but you can see the push rods are kind of sticking out too far. So I'm going to mount the V-tails, snap on the ball links, and then mark the carbon push rods here so I can cut them, and then we can scuff up those push rod ends clean everything up with some alcohol and get the glue on. Our dear old friend JB Weld has been applied here to the couplers and the push rods. I've programmed the servos to get them perpendicular to the center line of the fuse so the arms are good. Tails are on and centered, everything's looking good. So we're just going to let this dry up, then we can pop the screws in the servos and somehow try to shoehorn the battery and receiver up in the nose. Alright, let me show you what I got going on here. I did manage to get the receiver and battery in. So this is a JR 6-channel soft case receiver right here. And I had to grind about 4 more millimeters back on the fuselage. Then we have an 18500 cell here. And I had to remove a lot of the fuselage there. You can kind of see the line that it had, and I kind of came down and notched it out a little bit. So really took off more of the fuselage than I would have liked. Like I said before, if you can get your servos back another 10 millimeters or so, you're going to have a little easier time. It's going to require you ditching the couplers or making the couplers shorter. But really just keep that in mind when you build this out, that you want your servos to be as far back as you can. Okay, where I'm at now is I got some lead. You can see these pieces right here. And this is all the lead I need to get a CG of 102. And really not much, not really anywhere to put it. So I've shaped a couple of pieces like this. They're going to get stacked on here. And I've already test fit the fuselage or the nose cone and it fits. So that's where those pieces are going to go, and hopefully this amount will go in here somehow. I'll have to cut it up and bend it and try to make it fit in there. But all that should get me at 102, which is in the recommended range. So let's just keep going and see what happens. Getting really close to being done here. Got the battery in, the 18500 cell. And then I have 2 strips of lead kind of curved around the battery, stacked on top of each other. You can see that there. And that's all held in place with some shrink tubing. And I've already put the nose on and it fits. It does get tight, but it fits. And then I have melted down the remaining lead into the slug here, and that's going to get shoved into the nose. I will put like a little bit of foam in first, just so that lead is not directly on the battery, even though the battery does have like a paper cap on it. Just want to be extra certain that the lead doesn't somehow short the battery. So we'll do that, and then we'll check the CG, and hopefully we're spot on. But I have a feeling that I might have to add a little bit more weight because of the slag and stuff that came off this when I melted it down. I think we're done. I got that lead in the nose, and I just put a little bit of JB Weld in there to kind of hold it in place. And I put a few extra small pieces of lead in there, and if I need to remove some, I can just take a drill and drill some of that out. It won't be a problem at all. But yeah, challenging build, very cramped quarters. I would recommend installing a Zepsys switch or something. I didn't have one, so I'm just using extension cords for now, but I will get a Zepsys in there hopefully. And yeah, so just to kind of wrap up, I want to go over the servo install. I put my servos a little too far forward. You can get these back at least another 10 millimeters. You can see I still have probably about 15 millimeters of flat there left. I could have taken those servos back, but at the end of the day, you do need room for your clevises, and you want a little bit of leeway to allow the push rods to flex slightly. So I'm not sure if you could go all the way back to there. Probably not, because you need room for these clevises to go back and forth, but you could definitely go back another 5 or 10 millimeters. And if you're willing to forego the couplers and just glue the clevises directly to the push rods, you could save even more space. Or you could consider shortening the coupler slightly and even possibly shortening the threaded portion of the clevis there, all with the aim of getting these servos as far back as possible. I think, you know, unless you have some tiny little S-bus kind of receiver thing going on, stick with the 18500 battery. 18650 is just too long. You won't have enough room for your receiver. Like I said, I'm using this JR6 channel. And I think if I would have got my servos a little further back, I could have got this Radio Master in there too. There's other receivers out there. So yeah, just keep that in mind with the servos. Other than that, it wasn't terrible. You do have to remove a lot of material off the fuselage to get the cells in. I don't like doing it. It's kind of scary. I feel like I'm taking away all the structural integrity of the model, but you know, at the end of the day, the nose cone makes up for it. So yeah, that's it. I hope this video helped you guys out. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.